microphone that Pusha T used during the show. It had his autograph on it. That was like a really, really big Clips fan. I used to pretend I was perform all the Clip songs in my basement with the mic. And then I performed with it so much that I rubbed the autograph off. At the time, it meant the world to me, though. I'm gonna regret even telling this story. I'm gonna regret even telling this story.
I study
Pusha T
for a living.
Like, what's your family like? Oh, your dad left you at 5. Oh, I get that. He never walked you to the bus stop. You're mad about this. Your mom, she never remarried. Oh, you don't even know what like family is. So of course you don't dig marriage.
I'm banned from Canada. Like I can't get back over there, right?
You're battle with Drake.
Right, but I mean, just the censorship of it and the things that, you know, were stopped and halted and verses and so on and so forth. I was like, oh, this is a real situation.
Pusha T, if you're running a whole rollout based on not respecting someone and you're a man, are you being honest to the world? Is this a real feeling or is this contrived for marketing?
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, they have been persistently perpetuating pompous plans to plant Pusha T in the turf. Disregard the Drake dissing that was decades long that culminated on the Story of Adin song. Pusha T has pointed to every wrong, from every long-lasting bond to battle opponent that he's had. Pusha T's been right every time they say he's too mad. Is he dissing for album rollouts, or is he revealing the truth? Pusha has been a prophet, so let's dig to the root. I mean, he's even prophesized everything we've seen in the Drake lawsuit. The courthouse Karen conniving for information on Kendrick's kids. Pusha predicted every move that the petty petition Padre had did. You don't believe me? Let me show you the facts, but first smash that like and subscribe button with a smack. Now Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, 5 years ago, Pusha T's manager Steven Victor was planning the posthumous Pop Smoke album. He landed Pusha a feature on the song Paranoid with Young Thug and Gunna. This was about 2 years after Pusha T's beef with Drake, and Young Thug thought Pusha T was dissing Drake on this Pop Smoke record. So he went on Instagram and said, I don't respect the Pusha T verse on the song with me and Gunna because I don't have anything to do with your beef and neither does Gunna. And if I knew that your verse was about Drake, I would have made changes on our behalf.
First of all, your verse 7 days, if you know what I mean. I'm up for a week. Second of all, you already went crazy the first time, so you ain't even got it. Ain't nothing but a sucker going on double takes and triple takes and quadruple takes. You should have just got all of that on the first song you put the first song out. You just feel like you ain't gonna get enough views on your own, so you came and put some bullshit on a whole nother who's resting in peace music. Cause you feel like, but this is the perfect platform. Thug, Gunna, and Pop Smoke. This is the perfect platform.
Pusha T responded saying, hey Young Thug, a couple things. One, don't feel bad. Nobody knew what the verse was about. The label heads that stopped it didn't even know. They only assume it was dissing him because Drake told them. The same way Drake told about the Rick Ross Maybach 6 verse. And if he'll tell record executives about rap verses, God only knows what else he'll tell. I don't deal in police work, police rappers, or police guys. From rappers crying to record executives to blatant label censorship, I don't ride with none of it, but I love every bit of it. Now y'all run along and be gangsters, but you leave the devil alone. And from the outside looking in, many casual observers could have thought that this was Pusha T stringing on a 2-year beef with pure saltiness and evil energy, even calling himself the devil. But there's a lot more to this story. And when you look 5 years later, when Young Thug was fighting the state of Georgia over a RICO charge where they were using his lyrics as criminal evidence, and Young Thug crying on Twitter every day about Gunna being a rat in that case, or Kid Cudi testifying against Diddy, calling him a rat as well, you would think Young Thug's #1 enemy right now would be Law Brianna, who is suing for defamation over the lyrics in a diss song against him. Not like us. And this lawsuit he concocted potentially jeopardizing the sanctity of free speech in song lyrics and setting a new precedent for how rap bars can lead you behind bars. For whatever reason, Young Thug is still riding with Drake. Meanwhile, Pusha T, who 5 years ago was warning Young Thug that Drake was crying to record executives, censoring lyrics behind the scenes, and warning Young Thug that if he would go as far as to rat to the executives over rap lyrics, think about what else he would do. Pusha T has now been planted in Drake's paperwork, with Drake demanding all communication that UMG had in relation to censoring or releasing Pusha T music, as well as all communication UMG had related to Kendrick Lamar, Dave Free, and Kendrick Lamar's children. It makes you think that Pusha T had prophesized all of this 5 years ago. But there's a lot more to this story, and a lot more that Pusha T has prophesized throughout his entire career. Pusha T has always been categorized as what you could call a boogeyman within hip-hop. I mean, the world saw what he did with Drake on the story of Adin and on Exodus 23. And this is the same man who on his debut album rapped, "In Virginia, we smirked at the O.J. Simpson trial. Yeah, I guess the chase was wild, but what's the fuss about?" The same man who ad-libbed his entire 2022 album, It's Almost Dry, with Joker ad-libs. The same man who threatened to release videotapes of Travis Scott breaking down in front of him over Kylie Jenner. Surely this is a hate-fueled man who thrives off of terrorizing other rappers. But when Pusha T's asked about being the bully of the game, he claims that every flame he's fanned is just a result of him finishing a problem that other people started. In a GQ interview this year, he said, "I've really been in Paris, making my songs, doing my stuff. When these people mention me, they're really going out of their way. What have I done besides wear clothes these past couple of years? This stuff ain't coming out of nowhere. I promise you. They did the underhanded weird stuff." And the ops list stretches far long beyond just Drake and Young Thug. Pusha T has had a multitude of targets over his multi-decade long career, spanning from Birdman to Lil Wayne, Travis Scott, Kanye West. Just like Drake, he even sued his own record label, Jive, back in 2005, but for much different reasons. And with all the new horrendous details of Drake's lawsuit coming to light, it makes one thing very clear. Everything Pusha T has ever said about any rapper or record label, he's always ended up coming out in the right. And I'm sure you know the age-old story. If Birdman ended up paying Pharrell for a beat over 20 years ago, there'd be no Pusha T and Lil Wayne beef. No Pusha T, Young Money, and Drake beef. There might not even be a Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. Yes, it really runs that deep. And if you don't believe me, now you'll find out.
I study rap battles for a living.
See, the common theme in all the issues Pusha T has with various different artists and the claims he makes about them that end up becoming right years down the line, it all simply stems from Pusha T being loyal to the guys that he's working with at the time.
We come from just loyalty to a fault.
Yeah.
If you're my friend, you're my friend. And I just seen him in the mix of people who I don't think reciprocated. And I think people have taken advantage of the fact that you don't complain and that you don't snitch and you don't talk. And people know that you're not going to say nothing.
That's what they live off that.
And that's why when he says, "I'm really just out here minding my business, they start these problems with me, and I just finish them," he's not lying. Way back in 2002, when the Clips had just released their debut album on Pharrell's label, of course, coming into the game with Pharrell, they were loyal to him no matter what. The Clips and Pharrell did a couple collaborations with Cash Money, including the Grinding remix, way back in 2002 with a young Lil Wayne and Birdman, and What Happened to That Boy with Birdman and Manny Fresh. Birdman, notorious for not paying artists what they're owed for the music they produce, never paid Pharrell for his contributions to What Happened to That Boy. And Birdman not paying his artists, that's going to play an important role in this story very shortly. But this wasn't actually the reason why Pusha T hated Young Money years later. It was simply the small trigger that caused a ripple effect that would culminate into decade-long beefs between various different artists. Pharrell, after not getting paid, allegedly vowed to never work with a Cash Money artist again. And when him and Chad were dominating the streetwear fashion world with brands like Bape and Billionaire Boys Club, Lil Wayne had wanted Pharrell to send him some exclusive BBC clothing. Pharrell allegedly denied, and Wayne wore the clothing in magazine covers and music videos anyways. And while this was going down, the Clips were battling their record label Jive after Jive had split up with Pharrell's label Star Trek, and this left the Clips under new management who didn't know how to necessarily market them well. As a result, they ended up suing Jive to get out of their contract, and because they were amidst a legal battle, they couldn't release much music. So inevitably, their buzz died down, but eventually they were able to release the first single to their second album, Mr. Me Too, which called out anyone within the game who, during the Clips' 4-year hiatus from their first album, had started biting the Clips' sound, style, subject matter, etc. The Clips, of course, were riding with Pharrell, so they were often looked at as pioneers in the fashion world for introducing hip-hop to brands like Bape and Billionaire Boys Club, etc. And along with that, they were some of the first rappers bringing coke rap into the mainstream, a style that Wayne would roll with years later. So people thought because Wayne was rocking Pharrell's clothing lines that the Clips had pioneered and kind of adopting some of their subject matter, that Wayne was biting Pusha T and his brother. Because of that, many people thought that the song Mr. Me Too by the Clips and Pharrell was directed at Wayne for copying them. And to make a long story short, when Wayne was asked about this in interviews, he didn't have the nicest things to say, essentially saying like, who the F are the Clips? I don't see them. I don't see Pharrell. You're talking to the best. I'm wearing this stuff and I make it hot. They wear it and you think it's lame. They're not in my league. Talk to me like you're talking to the best. And this is where the true issue started between Lil Wayne and Pusha T. It wasn't directly from Birdman's bad business dealings years prior. It was because as the Clips were going through their own bad business with their record label and they were unable to release music, their buzz dying down year by year, you now have one of the bigger rappers in the game, Lil Wayne, completely dissing them and tearing them down, downplaying their impact on the game while they can't really release music to fight back. So a common theme in this video is going to be, like Pusha T emphasized all the way in 2025, it's not him starting these issues with rappers. It's him putting an end to issues that they start with him. Wayne was talking crap about them in interviews, and that's when Pusha T started going off.
I remember just a very dark time for me, just musically, like a label drama. People were telling Wayne he was trying to talk dope like the Clips, or drugs, and he wore Bape like the Clips. Right. I never said that. There was a Vibe article where he just spoke to that, but he just spoke about us in a very down talking. And I'm like, damn, we already going through what we going through, and you know, you're not even bright enough or smart enough at the time. Like, I ain't got no problem with Wayne. I mean, just so we clear.
So the interview Wayne did talking crap about the Clips is what would lead Pusha T to eventually start dissing Wayne once he got out of his legal battle with his record label and he was able to release music once again. On one of his mixtape cuts, Re-Up Gang Intro, he rapped, "Sorry, but I don't respect who you're applauding. The little guy flows, but his metaphor's boring. Don't make me turn daddy's little girl to orphan. That would mean I'd have to kill baby like abortion." This was released in 2008 when Wayne was on top of the world and of course known for his metaphors and double entendres. You guys remember bars like "had a phone in jail, that's a cell phone"? So yeah, Pusha T here is saying like the bars are weak, the metaphors are weak, the flow might be nice, but it's masked behind a bunch of BS. I don't respect who you're applauding. And Lil Wayne was of course signed to Cash Money, and the founder being Birdman. Birdman was like a father figure to Lil Wayne, with Lil Wayne often referencing him as daddy. They have songs together called "Stuntin' Like My Daddy." Birdman also goes by the nickname Baby. So when Pusha T here raps, "Don't make me turn daddy's little girl to orphan, that would mean I'd have to kill baby like abortion," he's talking to Birdman and saying that Wayne, being Birdman's son, would be left as an orphan. Lil Wayne wouldn't respond, and in 2010, Pusha T even said that any issue he had with Wayne was now dead now that Lil Wayne was incarcerated, and he was happy to see Lil Wayne get released. But things would heat back up about a year later when Young Money's next protege, Drake, and let me just clarify, Young Money is a label Lil Wayne started, and 51% of Young Money's profits were owned by Cash Money. That's going to play a very important role in this story very shortly. So Young Money is under Cash Money, which is under Universal Music Group. Drake is signed to Lil Wayne on the Young Money label, and he has now taken the torch from Lil Wayne, and in 2011 he releases a song called "Dreams Money Can Buy." Now Drake started off being a very vocal fan of the Clips coming into the game. Pharrell, the Clips, Kanye West, it's funny how he now has issues with all of them. But on that "Dreams Money Can Buy" song, Drake raps, "I feel like lately it went from top 5 to remaining 5. My favorite rappers either lost it or they ain't alive. And they trying to bring us down, me, Weezy, and Stunna. We stayed up. Christmas lights in the middle of summer." People took this as a shot towards the Clips because Drake was saying before he came in the game that his favorite rapper, or one of them, was Pusha T. At this point in time, it's 2011, Pusha T and Malice had just split up, the Clips were no longer, and Pusha T had to get his footing as a solo artist. he had just signed to Kanye West's Good Music label. He hadn't released any albums, right? So it's kind of a similar situation to when Wayne was taking shots at the Clips when the Clips couldn't release any music because they were fighting their record label. At this point, Pusha T is figuring his situation out as a solo act, and Drake is on record here saying that my favorite rappers either lost it or they ain't alive. And he makes it even more clear that this is a shot towards Pusha T because the next line is, they're trying to bring us down, me, Weezy, and Stunna. Of course, Pusha T had been dissing both Birdman and Lil Wayne just years prior. And Pusha T would end up taking this beat and releasing a whole new song on it on his own, where he's most definitely dissing Drake. This was the first time he ever took a shot at Drake, and he's definitely predicting a lot of what was to come. He rapped, rappers on their sophomores acting like they're boss lords. Fame's such a funny thing for sure, when guys start believing all them encores. This was obviously a shot at Drake because this was right before he released his sophomore album, Take Care. And he's already on records talking about, his favorite rappers lost it or they ain't alive. He continues rapping, Chappelle Show, all of you Neil Brennan's, sketch comedy, who is for real pennin'. The talk don't match the leather, the swag don't match the sweaters. This was the first time, way back in 2011, that Pusha T would allude to any ghostwriting rumors coming from the Young Money camp. It's important to remember that before the ghostwriting rumors with Drake, there was already ghostwriting rumors with Lil Wayne, where Gilly the Kid, who had been an artist on Cash Money, had said that he wrote most of Wayne's Carter 1 album along with a bunch of other records for Cash Money, and he was even in the What Happened to That Boy music video with the Clips, Pharrell, and Birdman. But now we're in 2011, and on this record, Pusha T raps, all of you Neil Brennan's sketch comedy, who was for the real pennin'. Neil Brennan was one of the writers on The Chappelle Show, which Pusha T references. Chappelle had felt like Brennan had betrayed him. So when he references real pennin', it's a double entendre because he's talking about Neil Brennan writing for The Chappelle Show, but also the writers within Young Money writing bars that the YMCMB artists would later spit, but it's rhymes that they didn't truly live. And that's why on the next few bars, Pusha T raps, the talk don't match the leather, the swag don't match the sweaters, and wolves don't walk with shepherds. He was calling out these ghostwriting rumors long before a Quentin Miller or a Meek Mill or anybody. And of course, the next year we'd get Exodus 23:1 from Pusha T, where he would rap, contract all effed up, I guess that means you're all effed up. You're signed to one guy that's signed to another guy that's signed to three guys, now that's bad luck. Creating the angle that Kendrick Lamar would later on run with 12 years later, and of course here he's emphasizing the horrible label situation of Young Money being a label under Cash Money, which is a label under Universal Group. You're signed to one guy, Lil Wayne, who's signed to another guy, Birdman, who's signed to three guys, because Cash Money was under Republic Records, which is under UMG. Republic was founded by Avery Littman and Monte Littman. The CEO of UMG is Lucien Grange. There's your three guys. Lucien with UMG, who owns Republic Records, Avery Littman and Monte Littman. Then under them is Cash Money, owned by Birdman. Then you got Young Money under that, owned by Lil Wayne, who then signed Drake. You're signed to one guy, signed to another, who signed to three. At the time, people kind of brushed this off, right? And I guess you could say it seemed hypocritical because Pusha T was under Good Music, which was ran by Kanye, and Good Music was under Def Jam, which was also a division under UMG. But the contractual structures were very different between both camps. And Pusha T emphasizes that later in the Exodus song, rapping, those guys are using you as a pawn. You see, they never loaded their guns. Now you're all out here by yourself. Ask Steve Jobs, wealth don't buy health. Throwing that flag up, running around thinking you're hot stuff, taking half of everything that you get. Those guys are not dying for you. What he's referencing here, especially with the taking half of everything you got, is the fact that, again, Cash Money owned Young Money, and 51% of Young Money's profits went directly to Cash Money, meaning that Wayne and the rest of the Young Money label was only left with 49% of all the profits that all Young Money's artist music made. Taking half of everything you got, those guys are not dying for you. And out of every Kendrick Lamar diss, any diss that we've heard, I think, in the past 15 years, this one definitely aged the best, because just 3 years later, after Wayne responded with an atrocious diss track, F Pusha T and anybody that love him, he would end up going onto Twitter declaring that his next album, The Carter 5, could not be released because Cash Money was holding it hostage, along with him and his record label profits. He sued the label for $51 million and said he wanted off the label and nothing to do with those guys. The same guy that he used to call his father, It was now obvious Birdman was not dying for him, just like Pusha T had emphasized years prior on Exodus 23:1. But even with all the dissing, all the back and forth over the years, Pusha T did take the time when Wayne aired out his frustrations to extend a little olive branch, replying to Wayne's frustrated tweets saying, "If you want to drop albums and don't want your CEOs rubbing their hands all in your videos, come to Good Music." Suge Knight voice. He also took the time to celebrate the fact that, again, everything in Exodus aged perfectly, sharing a screenshot of the lyrics, tweeting out, "I never lied to the people, not one time." But he did invite Lil Wayne to join Kanye West's Good Music label, saying, "This too shall pass. Come to Good Music." So while people didn't understand why Pusha T was hating on Exodus 23:1, talking about Wayne's contract being messed up, then taking half of everything he gets, when Lil Wayne and the whole Young Money camp at the time were thriving, 2 years later it ages like fine wine. And Pusha T emphasized in an interview saying, "Exodus came out 2 years ago. People should just call me the prophet. You know what? Lil Wayne on Good Music? Well, Kanye actually likes Wayne, so they could probably make some good music together, but who knows? I don't know, I just like the fact that I'm a prophet because of Exodus." But with Pusha T now extending the olive branch for Wayne to join Good Music, he had a new target on his back. And while he was right predicting how every part of Wayne's career would go, there was nothing left to say about Wayne. But there was another target on Young Money with a pretty much spotless track record. And this is where the story gets taken up to another level.
I study rap battles for a living.
Drake at the time was putting out hit after hit, number one album after number one album, elevating in the game with each release, and no real stain to his legacy. That was, of course, until he got hit with the rap Rico. What am I talking about? Well, of course, Quentin Miller was writing his verse on Rico along with, I believe, another 6 records. I'm going to do a whole video on Quentin Miller very soon, so drop a comment if you guys want that. But with that came a new target in the Young Money camp for Pusha T to question the integrity of. On his 2016 record, HDTV, he rapped, "These guys call a duty cause their killings ain't real," with a questionable pen, so the feeling ain't real. The first time he references the fact that Drake is not concocting his own bars. But just like with Lil Wayne, how everyone said, Pusha T was kind of hating for no reason other than to just get a rise out of a rapper that was bigger than him, Pusha T would argue that all of these issues stem from people starting the problem with him and him just putting out the fire. And doing so by only bringing facts to the table and peeling the mask back on the greatest flaws of all these guys. And this would be a repeated theme of Pusha T just kind of doing his own thing, minding his business, and people taking shots at him. And this came in 2017, before the story of Adin, before Infrared, before any hater could say that this was Pusha T just trying to seek attention from calling Drake out. It was actually Drake who, again, took the first shot in 2011 with Dreams Money Can Buy, but was now reigniting this feud by calling Pusha T out in the most direct way any Young Money artist ever had up to this point, while also calling out at the time Pusha T's very vulnerable Good Music label mate in Kid Cudi. Because at the time Kid Cudi had been in rehab and Drake released the song Two Birds, One Stone. First he calls out Pusha T for the drug dealing stories that he raps about, saying, "But really it's you with all the drug dealer stories that's gotta stop though. You made a couple chops, now you think you're Chapo. You're middleman in this stuff, boy, you were never them guys. I can tell, cause I look most of you dead in your eyes, and you'll be trying to sell that story for the rest of your lives." The same way that Pusha T was calling Drake out for being fake by using ghostwriters, Drake was saying that Pusha T was fake for using other people's drug dealing stories as his own. Kid Cudi was also another rapper to call Drake out for ghostwriting, but again, he wasn't necessarily in the best mental state, and that's why very shortly after, he apologized and checked himself into a rehab facility, but while he was there, Drake releases this song, and while dissing Pusha T, he kills quote-unquote 2 birds with 1 stone by also dissing Kid Cudi, saying, "You were the man on the moon, now you just go through your phases, life of the angry and famous." And it actually took Kid Cudi almost 10 years to speak on this, just speaking on it in the last few days, saying that, this was a vulnerable time in his life, and he wasn't really sure why Drake chose that moment to start taking shots at him.
In the aftermath of your stroke, Drake comes at you on record. What was that about?
I was in this place where I was like really in my head about the things I was dealing with at the time. So I initiated it. Drake took offense to it and responded on record in the middle of my stint in rehab. And I was like, oh, okay, you wanna kick me when I'm down?
And it all comes down to morality, right? Like, how far will your ego take you? Can you be sensitive to a guy who's going through a hard time in rehab, or do you choose the time when he's at his weakest to start shooting at him? As for Pusha T, Kid Cudi has said out of anyone in good music, Pusha T was the only one who ever stayed loyal to him. And that's a common theme in Pusha's career. Pusha T stood by Kanye West for years until Kanye's comments and behavior just became completely unacceptable. Pusha T has always stood by Pharrell, inheriting his beefs for him whenever he needs to. We saw that with the whole What Happened to That Boy beef, him inheriting that beef with Lil Wayne and Birdman, and it would later happen with Drake and even Travis Scott years later. We're going to touch on that shortly. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say here is Pusha T has always been loyal to the people who are loyal to him, and the issues that he has all stem from principle. People disrespecting him and him just bringing the facts and peeling the layers back behind who these individuals truly are. And that gets revealed as time progresses. It happened with Lil Wayne and his contract situation. It happened with Drake with the story of Adin. We'll touch on that shortly, how Pusha T, beyond just exposing the kid, really peeled the layers back. It happened years later when he tried to warn Young Thug about how far Drake would go if he's willing to rat out other rappers to executives. And then we saw, of course, the whole thing play out with the lawsuit against UMG for Not Like Us. And like Pusha said, you can call him the prophet, right? And nothing would prophesize the next 5 to 7 years, the rest of Drake's career, than the story of Adin. This is when we really saw things taken up to a much higher level.
I study rap battles for a living.
Drug dealing aside, ghostwriting aside, let's have a heart-to-heart about your pride. Your soul don't look alive. The M's count different when baby divides the pies. Just based off the way Pusha T starts this song, you can tell he was calculating and waiting on this moment for years before it happened. And like he said at the end of the song, same way Kendrick did as well, he had plenty more in stock. He was ready to make it a surgical summer. But the story of Adin alone was enough to let Lawbury know the type of timing Pusha was on. Rest assured, as much as he wants to make it seem like backing out was due to the fact that Pusha T started talking about his friend 40's illness or bringing up too much gossip with the kid thing, and Drake thought that this was taking it too far, the real reason why Drake put a stop to this before it could go any further is because he understood the psychoanalytical capabilities of an artist like Pusha T. The story of Adin was the early moments of Pusha T picking apart the pieces of the petty petition Padres persona, layer by layer, starting from the anger he presented in his recent music to the lack of authenticity within his music stemming from the fact that it heavily relied on the use of ghostwriters, all the way to the lies he was telling himself about marriage and how he... Anyways, I'm gonna stop myself here. I'll let Pusha T explain what the hell I'm talking about.
Like, what's your family like? Oh, your dad left you at 5. And he never walked you to the bus stop. You're mad about this. Your mom, she never remarried. You don't even know what, like, family is. So, of course you don't dig marriage. The blackface. Right. You don't even know that that's not right. There's no explanation for that to me. You gotta think about who a person really, really is. And it's like, okay, bang, you highlight your dad clowning like that. You run to the Memphis. Oh, I'm Memphis, Houston. That's my black side.
I hope I didn't get copyrighted there because that was an important clip to keep in this video. Because he's literally laying down the groundwork, the foundation for all the insults, all the jabs, all the angles that Kendrick Lamar would later take 7 years down the line in his battle with Drake and help expose these issues to the world, right? These character flaws to the world. Drake is someone who will always go and attack his opponent's family members, their spouses. We're seeing that in this literal lawsuit with Kendrick Lamar where he's demanding information on Kendrick's kids, and within their battle when he was the first one to start bringing up the mother of Kendrick's children. He did the same thing in his battle with Pusha T. And Pusha drew the line perfectly. 7 years before Drake put Kendrick's kids in legal paperwork, Pusha T was laying out all of Drake's flaws and how they all stem back to his childhood, to his upbringing, to his values. He was warning the world right after the story of Adin the type of person Drake was. And he would go on to have to experience Drake's wrath behind the scenes for years to come. And at the time, while people might have called Pusha a hater for continuously and ruthlessly, viciously clawing at Drake's character, Pusha behind the scenes had to experience a lot of BS, all tied back to La Brianna. So it would make sense that while Drake was having record executives give Pusha T hell behind closed doors, Pusha was extremely insulted when Pharrell was forced to pick between Pusha or Drake in an interview on Drink Champs. And this is when Pusha's loyalty is on full display. So like I mentioned before, Pusha T came up with Pharrell, right? And for a while, Pharrell refused to work with any Cash Money artists. But that changed in 2017 when Drake hopped on the Nerd remix to the song Lemon, also ironically featuring Rihanna. But by 2018 is when we see Pusha T and Drake escalate their bad blood. So you would assume that Pharrell would undoubtedly be riding for Pusha T. But when he's asked in a Drink Champs interview years after the beef who he would choose overall, Drake or Pusha T, he doesn't quickly jump to say Pusha T. In fact, he says both.
Drake or Pusha T? He said both.
Drake got bars, bro.
Yeah,
Drake got bars. By the way, Pusha says Drake got bars. Yo, when Drake makes something that's amazing, we talk about it all the time. When something's it's amazing.
And he goes on to explain because, you know, Pharrell's a peaceful person, right? He doesn't like to see two artists that he thinks are very talented, one who he came up with, nonetheless, start this type of lyrical warfare. So he says that, you know, maybe Pusha did take it too far and that if he was there to stop Pusha, he would have tried to.
It wasn't good. Drake's amazing and Drake is all powerful and he's...
You think Pusha went too far?
You know, like, Pusha didn't tell me because he knows I would have stood in front of him as much as I could. But he's a different kind of person.
And we later find out years later that through Nori, the host of the Drink Champs show that Pharrell said this on, this was the first time Pusha T ever called him and was furious. He was like, you think if OVO 40 was on Drink Champs and he was asked Pusha T versus Drake, you think he would say both? He would never say both. Just due to the loyalty factor, that answer is unacceptable.
When we had Pharrell on the show, it's the first time I ever heard Pusha T raise his voice. And I said to Pharrell, Pusha T or Drake? And he said both. Pusha called me like, how the is our boy doing this? Drake wouldn't have picked both of us? Drake would have picked him!
First time I ever heard Pusha like raise his voice. He was like, yo, you think 40 from OVO would have picked, would have said the same?
And Pusha T would go on to say that it wasn't just Nori that he got mad at for asking the question, it was also Pharrell. He questioned Pharrell on why he wouldn't pick a side and stay loyal to that side. Because again, that's what Pusha T has done his entire career. Anytime you see him beefing with another artist, it's to remain loyal and protect whatever camp he's with at the time. Lil Wayne dissed both him and his brother as the Clips in total, and it was Pusha who took the responsibility on to continuously diss Lil Wayne for decades to come. Then Drake disrespected Kid Cudi when he was in a very vulnerable state. Pusha T releases Infrared. Then Drake comes out with Duppy Freestyle where he mentions Pusha T's wife and disses Kanye West at the same time, and Pusha T releases The Story of Adin where he raps, how dare you put Ye in my verses? I'm selfish, I want all the curses. You could tell he stands on loyalty and that's why he was upset that he felt like Pharrell maybe didn't reciprocate that, even though Pharrell was just trying to be, you know, the good guy in all this. But Drake didn't care about, you know, all the nice things Pharrell had to say about him because just a year later, as Pusha T was censored by UMG, the record label that both him and Drake were signed to from dissing Drake, Drake would go on to confidently diss not just Pusha T, not just Kanye West, but also Pharrell. For no reason. Again, Pharrell is the most unproblematic individual in this entire thing. He bought Pharrell's chains at an auction, he wore them in a bunch of music videos taunting Pharrell, and then rapped about the fact that ever since Pharrell became the head of menswear at Louis Vuitton, no one from Drake's camp is wearing it anymore, and that he melted down the chains that he bought from Pharrell's auction. Dissing Pharrell after Pharrell had the courtesy to not quickly jump and say Pusha T was the better artist and instead defend both of their artistries. Something that Pusha even got mad at Pharrell for. And now years later, Drake is dissing Pharrell for, again, no reason. And I'm sure you guys know the story. This verse where he was dissing Pharrell was on a song called Meltdown by Travis Scott on his album Utopia. That verse came in at the very last minute, but before that, Pharrell already had a feature on Utopia, and Travis Scott interrupted a studio session in Paris where the Clips and Pharrell were recording to come and play Pharrell the Utopia album without the Drake verse. Then, when the album gets released, you hear the Drake verse where Drake is dissing both Pharrell and Pusha T. And of course, Pusha being the loyal guy he is, hating the backstabbing, censoring, fake games that are being played behind the scenes within the industry, he was absolutely disgusted by this. It's bad enough that after the Pusha T, Kanye West, and Drake beef in 2018, Travis Scott fueled the fire by featuring Drake on Sicko Mode where he was dissing Kanye West continuously, so much so to the point where Kanye had to hear Sicko Mode where he's being dissed played at his kids' birthday parties. But now he's interrupting Pharrell and Pusha T's studio sessions to play them an album where they're both getting dissed on. So Pusha T exposed it in the song So Be It off the latest Clips album where he rapped, "You cried in front of me, you died in front of me, Calabasas took your girl and your pride in front of me, her utopia moved right up the street, and her lip gloss was popping, she ain't need you to eat." The net's gonna call it the way that they see it, but I got the video, I can share and AE it. Lucky I ain't TMZ it, so be it. And again, this was another case of many people calling Pusha T a hater, right? Like, you have an album coming out, just like back in the day when you dissed Lil Wayne before your album came out, then you dissed Drake before your album came out, now you're dissing Travis Scott before your album comes out. But as Pusha T puts all these situations, these are all instances where people come at him, people start with him while he's minding his business, or start with the people around him, like Pharrell, and that's when he feels the need to jump out and basically put an end to the problem. He's never shied away from voicing his opinion on the fake crap that goes on within the industry. And somehow it all roots back to Drake. Drake has made Pusha T's career a hell since their beef. He got attacked on stage while performing in Drake's hometown of Toronto. He got banned from recording with Kanye in his studio sessions in Wyoming whenever Drake was there. He got sneak dissed a million times after the beef for years to come. And of course, he was censored by the record labels forever fighting back in order for them to protect Drake. But let's pause on that for a second and focus on Kanye. Because like I said, Pusha T was not able to record with Kanye whenever Drake was in the room. He had his own scheduled dates and had to fly home whenever Drake was supposed to come in. If you think Pharrell played both sides by refusing to choose between Pusha T or Drake, Kanye West was the biggest fence sitter we have ever seen in the entirety of hip-hop. In one instance, he had this deranged obsession with Drake where he would make statements like, "If Drake wrote all my music, I would never have a problem in the world anymore." He demanded that his artist Big Sean make an entire remix of his collaboration with Drake, Blessings, and put it on Big Sean's album the day before Big Sean's album was supposed to release, causing a massive mess in terms of the distribution of the project. And there's a million other instances of this weird flip-floppy behavior, but to spare you guys the details, Drake and Kanye West have gone from lovers to haters constantly throughout the last damn near decade. And the whole time after Pusha T exposed that Drake was hiding a child, Kanye West, instead of ever trying to defend Pusha T, was just trying to fight off the wrath of Drake and emphasizing to the world that he was not the one who shared that information with Pusha. And the whole time, Pusha always said, "I don't understand the weird love-hate relationship these guys have, the back and forth that they do where one minute they're shooting each other on the song, the next day they're bigging each other up. I don't get it. I stay in my own bubble, but regardless, I stay loyal to who I'm with." So even if Kanye is playing both sides, he's not declaring his loyalty to me, even though he produced the album where I started this beef dissing Drake on. I'm still gonna ride for Kanye. And if you guys didn't know, Pusha T was the last one of the Good Music camp to actually remain signed to the Good Music camp. Not just that, be the president of Good Music and stick and collaborate with Kanye throughout all of his controversies just out of sheer loyalty. In that same GQ interview where he was talking about all these guys starting problems with him just being the one to end the problems, he also referenced Kanye and how their relationship turned sour in 2021 when they were working on Kanye's album Donda. Pusha T would pull up to the studio sessions and he said, "I'm in a collective with a lot of individuals, everybody's working, but I really got stuff to do. So when I leave, it's one energy, but then when I come back, the energy's off." And then you hear about the sidebar conversations. You got your homeboy coming up to you like, "Yo, they were saying this and that when you left. I'm thinking that we're all in this collectively getting busy. But in all actuality, everybody has their own agendas. And I feel like I was the only one who didn't. My agenda was for the squad. So from that point on, I just looked at everybody differently. I looked at it as, we're just going to make music. We're going to get beats, we're going to write some raps, and we're going to keep it moving." This was in 2021. This was when Pusha T realized that the loyalty he displayed to Kanye West wasn't the same on Kanye's end. He would leave the Donda studio sessions and people were talking crap on his name. Then he'd come back and the energy was completely different. So what did he do? Well, he remained loyal. He didn't badmouth Kanye. He didn't stop collaborating with him. He kept their business relationship professional, but he realized from that point on, the morality that he displayed was not reciprocated, and he kept that in mind. He would go on to continue collaborating with Kanye, even doing an entire project with both him and Pharrell in 2022. It's Almost Dry, being again the last person to stick by Kanye's side. But Pusha, being a man of morals, drew the line in late 2022, a couple months after they released their project together, when Kanye started going on awful rants about Jewish people, black people, white supremacy. He was saying a bunch of horrible things. And this seems like a lifetime ago, because this was in 2022. I mean, we all know that he made that song praising the Mustache Man in 2025, but this was 3 years ago. And Pusha T said, Kanye's not speaking to me now, because if you're not with what he's saying and you're not down, then he cuts you off. And I'm not with it. I'm not budging on that. I'm not with the stuff he's saying. And from that point on, we would never see Pusha T and Kanye West collaborate again. And this is very significant for several different reasons. A, like I mentioned before, Pusha T was the last person to stick by Kanye's side. And it took the most morally degrading, awful statements from Kanye West for Pusha T to finally draw the line. But unlike most artists who actually ended up re-collaborating with Kanye in 2023 and 2024 for Vultures, Pusha T stuck by his morals. He was upset at the comments Kanye made in 2022, so he didn't collaborate with him from that point going forward. And I think that's the most significant part of this whole thing, right? He could have been a part of that whole Vultures movement, right? Kanye and Kid Cudi had their back and forth. Cudi in 2022 vowed to never collaborate with Kanye again. Kanye goes on to say horrible things, but when he comes back for Vultures in 2024, Kid Cudi is right back by Kanye's side. And there was tons of artists who kept collaborating with him, right? Of course, Ty Dolla $ign was on the Vultures projects. Kodak Black, Freddie Gibbs, Playboi Carti, Travis Scott, Quavo, Ricch the Kid. I believe Sci-Hi the Prince came back into the mix. The only one that refused to go back and collaborate with Kanye after the horrible things he said way back in 2022 was Pusha T. He stood by his ethical code. And by that point, it didn't matter that he was no longer with Kanye or good music. He had his brother back. Malice came back into the game, and the Clips were reuniting, working on their 15-year comeback project with Pharrell. And this is where we get, in my opinion, the most insane stories of hardship that Pusha T had to endure behind the scenes in his entire career. So as you guys probably know, the Clips released what could be easily the best album of the year in 2025. But what if I told you this project had actually been finished a year prior and was sitting on the shelf indirectly due to Drake's beef with Kendrick Lamar? And not only that, it costed them about $1 million just to get the project out. So yeah, the Clips had their project done and ready to release to the world in summer of 2024, right after the beef with Kendrick and Drake had concluded. They sent it into their record label Def Jam, which is another label under UMG. So the Clips were signed to UMG, and so is Pusha as a solo artist. When they bring them the project, the label is happy with everything except for one verse, Kendrick's part on the song Chains and Whips. According to the GQ article with the Clips, UMG blanched at the antagonistic optics of two of Drake's biggest enemies linking on wax. Pusha calls their apprehension stupid, primarily because none of the bars in Kendrick's verse could be perceived as a shot or even a subliminal. Pusha can barely detain his disgust recounting how the stalemate with Def Jam played out. They wanted me to ask Kendrick to censor his verse, which of course I was never doing. And then they wanted me to take the record off the album. And so about a month after not doing it, Steve Gawley, one of the lawyers at Def Jam, was like, well, then we'll just drop the Clips from our label. But that can't work because I'm still there as a solo artist. But if you let us all go, then it works out. Pusha's manager, Steven Victor, had went a little deeper into the details of this entire debacle, stating that there's an entire department at UMG that reviews music to make sure they're not stepping on any copyright infringement on the music they release, right? Like sample clearances and everything. So that same department that's supposed to work on clearing copyright issues, they were the ones trying to censor that Kendrick verse. They said, there's a line here. We think it's controversial. Kendrick needs to change it or we're not putting it out. Keep in mind, this is a couple months before Drake releases his lawsuit against UMG. So at this point in time, they're still trying to make things right with him. So they don't want anything to do with any of Drake's ops linking on wax on records that release on their record label, effectively attempting and threatening to censor Kendrick's verse or else they won't put out this Clips album. So what did they have to do? Well, they refused to censor it and instead paid Def Jam over 7 figures to be released from the label and then sign an independent distribution deal with Roc Nation. And this wasn't the only time they tried to censor Pusha T ever since his beef with Drake. He expanded on the issue, saying, if Drake is adamant to have a lawsuit against UMG about Not Like Us, it's only because he knows all the things they did to suppress everything that was happening around my diss song, The Story of Adin, and the verses and records and things that was happening back then. He alludes to instances in which he says labels had blackballed the release of several of Pusha T's verses where he talked his crap, next to people closely affiliated to Drake, like he did on Rick Ross and Lil Wayne's Maybach Music 6, or, like we mentioned earlier in this video, the Pop Smoke song with Young Thug. And sure enough, like we mentioned before, when Pusha T warned Young Thug that if Drake was willing to go to the lengths of getting record labels to censor the verses of his ops, think about how far he would take it. And Pusha T was exactly right. Young Thug might have called him a hater. Young Thug might have said that Pusha was dragging the beef too far by dissing him on a song with Young Thug, but Pusha T was right all along in that Drake is manipulating the industry, censoring artists, shifting the way labels work, all for his own benefit. And we saw this in the Not Like Us lawsuit, because now he's requesting documents from UMG where they have any communication about the censoring or release of Pusha T music, and they even specify including the song The Story of Adin. He's doing this because he wants to show the courts that, look, when I was beefing with Pusha T, UMG had no problem censoring his music. Pusha T spoke about this months ago, right? Predicting all of this. He said they blocked him on the Rick Ross song, the Pop Smoke song. They tried blocking Kendrick on his song, all to please Drake. Drake is now going as far to tell the courts, look, they did all this to block Pusha T to protect me, but now when it comes to Kendrick and the success of Not Like Us, they're not doing anything to protect me. And the lengths he would go to try and prove this stretches far and wide to bringing Kendrick's kids into this lawsuit, requesting any communication between Kendrick, Dave Free, or Kendrick's kids. When Pusha T warned Young Thug, saying if Drake would tell record executives about rap verses, God only knows what else he'll tell. Just like with everything else that Pusha T stood up for, he was right all along. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.